The Education Collaborative was envisioned by Ashesi University back in 2016 when in thinking about our skills strategy as a university, we asked ourselves, how quickly can we really bring about this African Renaissance if we're just doing it within ourselves at Ashesi University? So in thinking around this goal for transformation, we asked ourselves, could we rather bring along other institutions on the continent who buy into this similar vision to work together to really rapidly and quickly scale the outcomes for students on the continent? And so in achieving that, we've had to work through the differences in culture, the differences in context, the differences in types of institution, right? So those have really been our biggest challenges. And in tackling that, we've had to take a very organic approach to building the relationships and the connections that we've established in the Education Collaborative. So I would say the university leaders really have been our biggest ally, working through the kinks together, working through how to collaborate more efficiently and effectively, and helping us to determine where to prioritize resources and efforts to ensure the best outcomes. Also, a very notable ally has been the Mastercard Foundation in believing in this vision, in this initiative, and supporting through its resourcing for the next few years. In the last 3 years, we have been rolling out our 10-year strategy, ending in 2030. In doing that, we've really figured out how best to set up a regional hub, because the Education Collaborative is organized or implemented through regional hubs to drive further contextualization and relevance of the solutions and the sharing that happens. And in the last 3 years, one of the biggest successes is setting up these regional hubs. We set up East African Hub with about 10 institutions being the anchors in that region. And then we set up with the West Africa regional hubs with close to 15 higher education institutions really driving priorities in that region. So the future looks like institutions seamlessly working towards one goal for transformative higher education in Africa. And I think that's one of the biggest goals we are working towards in the Education Collaborative, to build a certain culture of trust such that institutions at any point feel like they can rely on each other to learn, to address challenges, and to make progress in giving quality education to the students that come through their systems and structures.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and good evening from wherever you're joining from. Thank you all for taking the time to join today's session. We're excited to welcome you to the session that's led by Covenant University in collaboration with the Education Collaborative. Kindly take a few minutes to introduce yourself in the chat box by letting us know your name, your institution, and where you're joining us from. As you may know, the Education Collaborative brings together higher education institutions across Africa, where institutions share knowledge, collaborate with each other on projects, and drive transformative change in the areas of teaching and learning, as well as working towards improving student outcomes. The Education Collaborative Initiative was launched in 2017 by Ashesi University, and the collaborative has grown quickly over the years with more than 40 member institutions over a lot of countries in Africa. And Over a few years of operation, the Education Collaborative has engaged close to 300 institutions who have participated in events organized by the Education Collaborative, including peer learning sessions like we are having today, communities of practice, and convenings that are organized at the regional level and then the African level as well. Your institution may enroll to join the Education Collaborative by simply sending an email to the Education Collaborative, which is education.collaborative@ashesi.edu.gh. You'll find that in the chat box very soon. And you could also follow us on our social media pages by just simply searching for the Education Collaborative, either on LinkedIn, on Facebook, or on Twitter or X. And about today's session, we're happy to have you share your learnings about today's session online. And please do tag us, and we are happy to retweet or reshare your post for today. So thank you very much. And once again, you are all very welcome to the session. I would hand over to Dr. Isaac Akinwumi from Covenant University. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rita. On behalf of Covenant University and the Education Collaborative, I want to welcome you to the first webinar of the webinar series on grant writing. It was observed that researchers in Africa, on average, attract few research grants. Consequently, the West African hub of the Education Collaborative is embarking on this initiative in partnership with Covenant University to enhance the competencies of researchers in grant writing by offering training for researchers to promote research advancement and collaboration. So this webinar, titled Crafting a Winning Research Idea from Concept to Proposal, focuses on refining and shaping research ideas into compelling grant proposal. And we have an accomplished scholar who will do justice to this topic. He will guide us through several principles of grant proposal writing within the next 45 minutes. And we hope to have 30 minutes of interactive and engaging discussion afterwards. So I will read a brief citation of the speaker, Professor Friday Okonofoa. Professor Friday Okonofoa is a professor of obstetrics and gynecology, the center leader of the African Center of Excellence in Reproductive Health, and the coordinator of the World Bank project at the University of Benin. He was the pioneer vice chancellor of the first University of Medical Sciences in Ondo City, Ondo State of Nigeria from 2015 to 2020. Professor Okonofoa is a fellow of the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, the Nigerian Academy of Science, the African Academy of Sciences, the International College of Surgeons, the Nigerian Academy of Medical Fellows, the Takemi Fellowship of Harvard University, the Nigerian Academy of Medicine. He has served as the Executive Director of the International Federation of Gynecology and Obstetrics, and as Honorary Advisor on Health to President Olusegun Obasanjo of Nigeria. He has been Chairman of the Publication Committee of the Nigerian Academy of Science and was recently elected the Vice Chairman of the Nigeria Academy of Science. In July 2023, he was also elected the Secretary General of the African Academy of Sciences. Professor Okonofoa is a global champion in women's health, a discipline where he has published more than 380 journal articles, 4 books, 26 book chapters, 22 monographs, and in March 2024 had a citation index of 6,322, an I-10 index of 189, and H index of 58. He has served as program officer at the Ford Foundation, member of the International Advisory Board of the MacArthur Foundation. He's the co-chair of Harvard University's research group on eliminating malaria in Africa. And he's a member of the high-level ICPD advisory group of the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA. He currently serves as a member of the Global Advisory Board of the UNFPA. He is the founder of Women's Health and Action Research Center and the founding editor of the African Journal of Reproductive Health that was voted the best journal in Nigeria by the National Universities Commission, NUC, in 2005. He's married and is blessed with children. So it is on this note that I welcome Professor Friday Okonufua to take it over. Thank you very much.
Dr. Akumi, for that introduction. I want to first of all thank the Education Collaborative, specifically the entire family of Covenant University that I'm extremely proud of. The Vice Chancellor of that university, Professor Adebayo, is one of the icons in Nigeria educational system. So I thank you for inviting me. And I do hope that in the next few hours or minutes, we'll be able to do justice to the topic. First of all, can you show me the slides, please? Well, I've been asked to speak on crafting a winning research idea from concept to proposal. And I want to say that I am going to speak mainly from point of view of my experiences in writing research grants. And as I mentioned recently, I've written several research grants, and I've actually obtained about 45 international research grants from various international agencies. So I've also been the program officer at the Ford Foundation, where I made grants to people who submitted their proposals. So I do know what the funders look for in grants. So this presentation will be based mainly on my experiences, and using a lot of anecdotes and all of the things I've learned in grant writing over the last few years. Next slide, please. So over the last couple of years, I've written several proposals. I've won in some cases and lost in many others. What I would say is that for you to be able to say that you get a grant, you can't rely on just one single grant and hope to get the result the next day. You have to be resilient. In the process of writing these many grants and being accepted in some and being denied in others, I've learned a lot of lessons on the ways to win good grants. And I think that even today, I still get grants that are not, that I apply for that I don't get, but largely because there are so many other issues that come into play when grants have been awarded. So it is not just sufficient to write good proposals, as many would advise. There are other issues to be considered. And I have 5 principles on which I will base this presentation. Next slide, please. The first principle is that behind every proposal, the most important component is the idea. The idea behind the proposal is the most important component of a proposal. Without a good and what I would call sellable idea, no funder will be interested in your proposal. You have to have an idea, and the idea should be compelling, and it is best when it is related to a social and developmental challenge in your environment. Next slide, please. So, developing ideas for grant writing is, I would say, the work you do before you actually begin to write the proposal. It is the most important secret behind winning a research grant. I will call it the central tendency and locus of successful grant application. The second secret is providing evidence that you or your team can carry out the project, or that you have a track record in implementing similar project activities. So if you do the project alone, and if you write a proposal and put your name alone, and the name of those who cannot show any evidence of a track record, then you are not likely to succeed. And the third aspect is to seal the deal for this grant. The proposal must be well written, and written in clear and plain English, not necessarily scientific English. You are writing for somebody who may not be your discipline, but who will have to understand the proposal before they can fund. So there's no point writing scientific jargons and hoping that because you are writing very tough scientific jargons that because of that they will give you the grant. No, you have to make the project, the proposal understandable by a large audience because it's a developmental challenge. To that extent, it should be understandable by a wide audience. Next slide, please. Next slide. So let's talk about the difference between ideas and innovation. This is a very important slide because an idea is a thought or suggestion as to a possible course of action. When we sleep, we all come up with multiple ideas. Every day I have multiple ideas and it's there. If it becomes an idea, only if you think of it. But the process of innovation is the process of taking action on an idea you've had. So if you have an idea and you take no action, then nothing will happen. So recently I presented a lecture at the University of Benin, and I was saying, ask and you shall be given. If you have an idea in your brain and you didn't ask, you didn't innovate, then certainly it will not lead to a good proposal. Failure to take action, that is to innovate on an idea, to me is the reason that many researchers stall in the process of developing their research pathways. They think of it, they begin to argue themselves, maybe this is not a good idea. Meanwhile, they've not, shared the idea with somebody else, they've not exchanged ideas on it. So this is a very important, because based on my experience, many people who have ideas, do not innovate, they don't take action on their idea. And that is the reason why many people don't get research grants. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So the question is, do you have a clearly defined research interest, area of interest, idea? And what is unique about your research, your area of interest? What is unique? Is the idea something no one else has tried? Is it compelling? Have you done a literature search to be sure that the idea is clear and compelling? Does it seem something out of the ordinary that would say, so, oh, fantastic. Is this something out of the ordinary? Does the idea fill a gap in the existing knowledge gap? Are you proposing a new technique in your teaching or building a new proven practice using a new twist? And so on and so forth. In this regard, you need to keep a journal of your ideas and scholarly interests and then try and think about it over and over again. Next slide. So the ways to obtain ideas for research grants is first to be top-notch in your discipline through detailed reading of the area, service delivery, and scholarship. And then reading and learning the types of research and research grants that have been received by others in that same discipline and twisting them around. Looking at what the funding agencies are interested in funding through participation in conferences and in networking activities, such as what we are doing now, and possibly working with a mentor or being part of a research team, being part of a previously awarded grant, etc., or being a senior academic in your discipline. So the characteristics, so the idea should be novel, should be fresh, should be novel, should be fresh, and it should bring new thoughts into ways to address a developmental challenge, not repeating what has been known and what is so obvious. And it should not be repetitive, unless you can provide evidence that such ideas haven't worked. For example, Uganda is relevant to solving the immediate challenge of the country or the community in Nigeria or in Ghana. So, and when you are doing that, you cite that, previous work and explain why it is relevant to the current work you are doing, either in Nigeria or in Ghana. And most importantly, the ideas will be more likely to be funded if they are action-oriented. What I mean by action orientation is that, for example, let's take issues of security in Nigeria, for example. And we know if, for example, you are to submit a proposal, say you want to describe the nature of insecurity in various parts of Nigeria, where they're happening, etc. I don't think they will be as interested as if you were to submit a proposal saying you want to find the root cause and to try. So I'm saying that the ideas should not be repetitive. Unless you can provide evidence that such ideas, having worked in Uganda, in Kenya, is relevant to solving the immediate challenge of a problem in Ghana or in Nigeria. So and then you explain why that, and of course you have to cite that particular initiative, that idea, and say why it is relevant to the work you are trying to do in Nigeria. And the ideas are more likely to be funded if they are action-oriented, meaning that if they are designed to solve a challenge, not to describe what the challenge is, but rather to find a solution to a problem. For example, I'm talking about insecurity, a situation where you have high level of insecurity. If you are to develop a proposal to say you want to describe the nature of infertility in an environment, they will not be as interested as if you are to say that you want to find out the root cause of that insecurity and find a solution to it. And then you actually describe the action you will take to address that problem. So there's such ideas that are action-oriented, that is, proposals that are action-oriented, designed to address a solution, to solve a particular challenge, is what funders are more likely to fund. Next slide, please. Now, so these are the characteristics. Again, I'm going to talk in a simple manner, not complex at all, because the truth is that if you are writing a proposal, you should make it as simple as possible so that anybody, because I've seen a lot of my proposals which I wrote as a medical doctor being reviewed by social scientists. And if I write very high quality medical words, they may not understand. So what I'm also presenting a way to show that whatever you do in terms of proposals that are to be funded has to be simple theories and practices and write-ups. The idea must be simple and it should be doable, something you can do. It should be technically, culturally, and ethically feasible. And it should be conceived within a reasonable budget and one that is within the limits of the funding agency. For example, if the funding agency says the maximum budget is $500,000, I don't think you should submit a proposal anything more than that. Indeed, you should submit something much less because you are going to compete with others, and they consider budget as part of the reason that they will fund. And it should be replicable, something that somebody can repeat in Ghana or in Sierra Leone. And it's something that you can expand. You start from a little beginning, and then later on you begin to think about how to expand it to reach scale in various other settings. So it should be scalable, or at least it should be designed in such a way that it can be scaled up to larger society impact, not only in your country, but even beyond your country. For example, we are doing a project in Nigeria, and it's very important. It has impact in West African region. There's no reason why you shouldn't design in such a way that it is scalable, not only within Nigeria, but also to other West African countries. That's when funders will be very much interested. Next slide, please. So, what are the ideas? Must be relevant to national and international frameworks, must synchronize with the mission and vision of the funding agency, which you must look for, should ideally focus on issues not addressed by national governments or regions, and that can contribute to addressing that particular challenge. Issues such as those related to social justice, human rights, poverty alleviation, gender, and the promotion of social equality are currently high priority around the world for funding. So I think that those are areas that when we talk about gender issues, talk about gender transformation, etc., social justice, human rights, because these are areas that governments don't often address. So when you submit a proposal to address those issues and it's well written, then you're likely to get funding. Next slide, please. So the concept papers and research funding. The concept paper will help to harmonize and synthesize the idea together after you have talked about the idea. And it is the first entry point to the funding that you are requesting. And these concept papers, as you are developing it, should be short, it should be succinct, and it should focus on the main purpose and methods and outcomes of the project at that very beginning. And if you are writing it without instructions from the funding agency as to how to write it, certainly it should not be more than 5 pages. Next slide. So the second principle, which I've found over the years, is that don't start writing the proposal until you get assurance of available funding or knowing the funding source. Because you waste your time. You just wait and write a proposal, 200 to about 20 pages and all that, without being assured of funding. Please don't write. Never write a full proposal until you have submitted a concept paper to a funding agency, asking them whether you can submit a proposal, whether they have money to fund that event, or if you are invited to develop a full proposal. Usually these days, funding agencies before ask you to write a concept paper, and they show the guidelines. Have you written it? They would review it along with others, and if it is acceptable to them, they will then ask you to submit a full proposal. Only do that. Please don't write a full proposal until you have gotten assurance of funding. And the process of ideas moving to concept paper can take a long time. To me, that's the most important. It's like a building block. It's like developing what I call something like a foundation of a house. You can spend a year thinking about an idea, looking for funding agency that will be tested before you actually begin to write the proposal. Next slide. So there are 3 types of proposals. One is solicited proposals. This is when you respond to a call for proposal in a particular thematic area. And if you do not respond timely, you lose out. The truth is that some people will just ask you to submit a proposal without going through the stage of concept papers. That is rare, but these days, more and more people ask for concept papers before they ask for solicited proposal. So, solicited proposal, one of the things I've learned also is that a lot of people, when they see an advert in the newspaper or in Google or anywhere asking for proposals, inviting proposals, a lot of academics don't take it seriously. They don't bother to write. They romance it, they think about it, but they never write. I can tell you that if you don't write, you won't get. But if you take that proposal and study it along with your team members, the possibility that you get a grant can be very high. The second one are unsolicited proposals. Again, you haven't seen any solicited proposal, but you feel that your idea is very important. So you try and reach out to the funding agencies. And that's when you write letters of proposal. Also compare papers, pre-proposals, and so on and so forth. It's the best approach. And you can actually be sometimes, when I was in Ford Foundation will ask for 1 page or 2. Why do you want to do the study? What are the brief methodology? How much are you requesting? And so on. So what do you think will be the impact? And I was the program officer at the Ford Foundation. I would sit down and simply reply, and I was reviewing so many every day. And the ruling at the Ford Foundation is that within 2 days, you should submit a report and say, yes, we're interested, no, we're not interested. And actually, the first grant I ever got, I got it through writing a concept paper to the Ford Foundation several years ago, whereby I did some work and I wanted to know who funded it. I wrote a letter to the Ford Foundation, and then they invited me to say they were interested. So please don't give up. If you have an idea and you think the idea is good, do not allow the idea to stay on your head. Please. Because a lot of people have lost out because they are not confident that the ideas they have can lead to a grant. But it's always sometimes possible. Even if it is 10%, chance that you have, please take it. Next slide. So these are some funding sources. You can just, that for example, you are thinking about, for example, anything you have, these are possible funding sources that you can write to when you have an idea, internationally. And actually, I found that international agencies are even easier, because particularly if they focus on Africa and because there's some grants that will say this grant is for Africans. Those grants are even easier than if you were to do other grants. So do not hesitate. Don't think that scientific. Once you learn the method of proposal writing, you can contact any of these sources. Next slide, please. Next slide. So another key resources for that you can possibly apply for. If you have a grant, there's no call for proposals you want to write and ask them whether they can fund a particular project. These are some funding sources. Next slide, please. So let me summarize this first part of this presentation. This is very important because without ideas, you can go nowhere with proposals. Ideas leading to innovations. Innovations are ideas you take forward. They are the most important part of a research proposal that can guarantee funding. Often embedded in the first part, the introduction of the proposal is often written in the form of a justification for the funding being requested. A concept paper will first introduce the idea to a funding agency, who will then decide whether or not to fund the idea. My experience, ladies and gentlemen, is that the lack of innovative ideas or the inability to convert ideas into innovation is the reason that we have low funding for research and development. I mentioned Nigeria here because I did realize that we have international participants in all over Africa. Next slide, please. So now, having gotten assurance from the funding agency, you for concept paper response to a novel idea, draft the proposal. We collate supporting evidence as documents. We write the final proposal. Please follow the steps. The funding agency will tell you where we want the introduction to be only 500 words. So be it. Don't go around 600 words. Then you wait for reply and follow up. If successful, implement the project. And implement the project very well. I want to say that it is better for you not to take a grant than to take a grant and not implement the project successfully and well. Because that is your track record. Once you've got a grant and you successfully implement that grant, you'll be open to more grants. And I can tell you, I got my first grant from the Ford Foundation in 1994. And up to now, I'm still getting grant from the Ford Foundation. Because you report and you do it very well, and they see successful, they see the impact, they give you another grant. So successful implementation is very important, which I will not have time to discuss here. So, but if you are not successful, try and find out why. Most of the time, they won't tell you the reason, but you can actually begin to find out why. Next slide, please. Next slide. So, if your concept paper is not successful, again, try and talk to them. We'll find out the reasons. And then also ask them, you know, your agency is not able to fund. Do you have an idea as to where else can fund? And if so, you begin to try that. Don't give up. If you think the idea is novel, do not give up. You can actually begin to remaster and refine your idea again. Go around again. Is this something that I didn't think of very well? Is it that I didn't get the partners very right? Objectives were not right. It wasn't smart enough and so on. Try and find out the reason. If you have an idea that is good and you think it's good to solve a national challenge, don't give up. Because I've seen agency rejecting my application for a grant and another one accepting it and funding it. Is that okay? And actually funding it with bigger money than the one I considered at the beginning. If you have a good idea, I've said it, if you have a good idea and you romance it and refine it, and you are convinced that that is the idea you need to solve a problem, and that the solution will lead to development of a plan of action to change the situation in your country, please go ahead and continue to try until you get a funding agency that will fund it. Next slide, please. Next slide. So once the concept paper is accepted, write to thank the funding agency for accepting the concept paper. Don't just ignore them. They like to be talked to. They like communication. Honestly. And, you know, when I was in Ford Foundation, they would say at the time that grantees are more respectful of the grantors is when they are seeking the proposal, when they are writing the proposal. After that, when they get the money, they ignore you. So they are very sensitive to when you don't communicate with them, when you are silent on many issues. So when you get a letter of concept paper accepted, please write to them and assure them you'll be writing a full proposal and thank them and assure them that if you get the grant, you will do it in a very, very successful manner. And then ask for more details. If possible, if you like, have the telephone number, WhatsApp number of the program officer. And if you have any questions at the time you are writing a proposal, please don't hesitate to write. They like, because they're also doing, You're also doing them a favor because you are helping them to solve a challenge that they have a mission and vision for. And if you are the one, they call them they work for example, says we work with agents in the front line of social change. They work with people they think are very good, who are in the front line of social change. So just as you want the money, they also want the respect and the things they get from it. So don't hesitate to hesitate. Don't hesitate to interact with them because it's very important at that stage. Next slide. So the next third principle. This is very, very important. Creating a winning proposal and project manager can solve the demand change you have identified. A winning proposal and ensuring that there's multiple stakeholders. Next slide. For example, these are the components: executive summary, justification, project description, budget. All of this should be synchronic, meaning that one should buy into it or other one. For example, I recently discovered that executive abstract is very, very important in some projects. After you've written everything, somebody may not have the time to read the full proposal. But if you have a very compelling abstract, they will just read it, and that will make them read the full aspects of the proposal. So they are saying that usually the agency will give you the guidelines to include the following, and please ensure that you follow the guidelines: number of pages, number of length, words, etc. Is that okay? Next slide, please. So these are the elements of a good project team. Because a project team, let me tell you something about proposals that are funded. They have to be multidisciplinary. I will talk about that later on. Because a problem that is a national problem cannot be solved by a single individual or by a single institution. So problem solving is the rationale for asking for funds. You want to solve a problem. That problem is what the funder is interested in. No single discipline, medicine, sociology, engineering, no single discipline can solve a social challenge alone. My experience has shown that the selection of multidisciplinary team members that can show evidence that they are capable of solving the problem together is the most convincing to funders. Multidisciplinary teams, multi-stakeholder groups working together. Sometimes they call them consortia. Sometimes they call them consortia of people working together. You know, and you know that these days people are very interested in working and funding teams and consortia to work on a research challenge, a challenge. If you are the only one doing the study, it means that you are not really working on a challenge. It means that the challenge is not likely to be a big one. Maybe it's a laboratory-based challenge. You want to find out how sodium chloride and other interact. Nobody is interested in that. Is that okay? So it's very important that multidisciplinary team, transdisciplinary team, including the industry. For example, we are going to solve a problem that will have impact on development, on products. At the very beginning, policy making. At the very beginning, you involve policymakers. The triple helix, I'm sure you know about that. Involve them, design the project along with them. It has a higher chance of being successful. Next slide. Multi-stakeholders, that is, people who look at it from different sectors. Communities, for example, you are trying to solve the problem of female genital mutilation or gender-based violence in the community, and you don't involve community members. How can that work? Multi-center, multiple institutions working together. Covenant University, working with other universities across Africa. Multi-professionals, people from different backgrounds, doctors, sociologists, accountants, social scientists, etc. Multi-country, working in Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon, solving similar problems that are large across the region, using different approaches. Then the triple helix, as I mentioned, universities, governments, and industry working together. Networks, consortia. If you do that, I can tell you, over the last, before I left the Ford Foundation, they came to the conclusion that they were not going to be funding individuals. I was lucky to be funded as an individual those days where I built up some things, but these days it will be very, very, very difficult for any one person to be funded because they believe that one person cannot solve the problem. So they rely on multi-centers, multi-stakeholders, multi-professionals. So this network is extremely important. So I want to encourage you to write proposals because that's what people like to see, consortia and networks, etc. Next slide. So these are the Ford Foundation. Ford Foundation is really one of the best foundations I've worked with. I've had grants from so many, but read project description, organization, a brief about your organization, experiences in that project goal, objectives, user activities, etc. Very short and nice. By the time I read the first page of a proposal submitted to Proport Foundation, I know what the person is talking about. I would decide whether I want to fund. That first page, where you talk about justification, organization, goals, objectives. Then if the objectives are right, the next place I go to is the method. How is he going to do it? Because if you have the right goals and you are not going to be able to do it, then forget it. Or you use wrong methods to try and address the objective, then forget it. And then the last is the grant, the budget, for example. If I look at the activities, I find out that you have very minimal activities, but the budget is so big, then again, I will also forget it. Because the budget is supposed to address the activities you have outlined. So if methodology, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 activities, you should say, how much do you need to address those activities? So if it's too large, then funding agencies are not likely to fund. Next slide. So, next slide, please. The last fourth principle, a good flow and internal consistency of the proposal. A good flow. It's like telling a story. You say the background, from the background, you go to objectives. Objectives and background should be synchronous. From there, you say, this is the methodology. This methodology is consistent with the objectives. And then from there, you go to the outcomes, etc. It should be like you are telling a story. You see a proposal where it is a good flow, internal consistency. It's like the person is telling a story of how you're going to address a national challenge. As a case like it. Next slide. So, the essential ingredients of a good proposal. Let's go on. Include issue. The issue, what problem does your research address? Number one, what problem? That's very important. The second is the design. How will the research achieve its objective? And then thirdly, the benefit. Those are the three main things that they look for. What is the issue? What problem is he addressing? How is he going to do it? And what are the benefits to society? Not to individual, to society. If you are doing a proposal and you say, oh, I'll get a PhD from it, I'll go and do postdoc, I'll do this, I'll become a professor, nobody will fund such research. They are interested in how the research will benefit society, how it will improve society. Is that okay? Next slide. So, the elements of the key proposal are that it is not an academic, scientific, technical writing. You don't write also jargons. It should be designed as a marketing document to market yourself, to market the proposal, to sell it to somebody that can fund. And good proposals often build and argue their cases in an eloquent manner, convincing, eloquent manner. Next slide. So, understanding the issue, this is what I call sell. First is understanding of the issue. Second is innovative solution. Find solution to the problem. Thirdly, significance and impact of the problem. Fourthly, experts. Then expertise and institutional capacity to carry the work. Next slide. So, ladies and gentlemen, a winning proposal must be an answer book. If there is no such thing as a generic proposal, a compliant, complete, and fully responsive to each specific RFPA, easy to read, and must be evaluated. No one wants to read proposals. No one is obliged to fund your work. So if you don't write it well and clearly, nobody will read it. Next slide. Only 3 reasons for writing proposal. One is to win. One, to win, to get the proposal. The second is to place amongst the outstanding finalists. And then the third is to gain attention and respect as a serious competitor within an area of specific research. Next slide. So, 6 characteristics of winning proposal: they are responsive, they are familiar, they are accurate, data, verifiable, benefit-oriented to society, and the answer is why me? Next slide. So, these are the steps. Do your homework, rigorously manage the proposal writing process, write the proposal for review and not for yourself, only you understand what you're saying. Structure your proposal as an answer book. Clearly align everything, your project goals, objectives, methods, etc. And articulate the results, etc. So these are, next slide. I have only 5 minutes or 3 minutes here. These are the ideal, the real, because the reviewers are the ones you should worry about. You see, somebody can see that I review for a number of donors. they can sit down, and if you're not careful, they'll give you 5/6 when you're supposed to get 8/10. Sorry, 5/10 something. And therefore, the ideal situation is that you share our interests and choose about the projects. Then, and I ask experts in subject area of your work. The truth is that they are not. They have time to read your proposals. Will be fair and impartial. But the real life is that reviewers are often overworked. They are overly committed, tired, skeptical, and highly critical about your work. Doubting, for example, in Nigeria, they will say, "Oh, is it going to be happening in Nigeria? There's probably risk averse if there's a risk to that project." So you must tell them the type of risk and how you are going to overcome the risk. Look for easy ways to review proposals as quick as they can. And then sometimes they don't even want to read the proposals. They just look for. Next slide. So the budget must be accurate and appropriate. No padding. No padding of the budget. Next slide. Because the budget talks about what you need money, competence, assurance, why it matters, validation, protection, and ratings. From the budget, they will know that you are a truthful researcher. Because today you say computer, you want to buy a computer at $10,000. That computer can be seen anywhere in the world, the cost of it. But we now have Google to tell you the truth. So please try as much as possible to be accurate in the budget matters. Next slide. Next slide. So why the budget is a proposal 2 is actually a proposal separate of his main proposal. So you develop a complete, compliant, responsive, and credible budget along the lines that have. It must be correct. It must be easy to the number from add up. It must be reasonable. It must be credible. And it must align with the work plan that you are trying to do. Next slide. So, types of planning budget is involve budget costing specialists necessary, identify projects, facts, the real costs of the project. Make sure you put the real cost. Don't go and pad it. Identify possible internal resources for project. And if possible, cost sharing. If you have, for example, you have the machine and you already have part of it, you can say, well, I have this machine which will cost this, but I'll buy areas and so on support. And then I identify cost leverage. Next slide. So budget failures, if it is too high, if it is too low. If the budget is too low, they will say, oh, maybe you don't understand what you want to do. So let it be appropriate. Maybe it is not compliant with agency regulations. Maybe, for example, they say the overhead should be 10% and you want to put 20%. Again, that is misalignment. Incompletely logical and value written proposals. Project narrative. Next slide. So these are the writing tips: transcription letter, project summary, graphics, marketing teams. Next slide. Next slide. Thank you all for listening. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Professor Okonofoa. I'm sure you will agree with me that Professor Okonofoa's presentation is insightful, inspiring, and he presented in a very simple way. Thank you again, Professor Okonofoa. I will kindly request that if you have any question, you indicate by raising your hands electronically, and we will take the first round of persons to ask questions before we move to the next. Also, you can also use the chat box and type your questions. So if you have any question, please indicate by a raise of hand. Okay, we have one question already posted on the chat box. What does it take to win first grant without experience? Prof.
Should I answer that or should?
Yes, I think you can go ahead. Yes.
Well, it's difficult because usually that's the time we make all the mistakes in the world. I remember when I wrote my first grant and it was rejected. It was because the team composition was not right. For example, when I was saying, oh, you must work with the field, I put my wife there as a co-collaborator, when indeed she didn't quite have the experience in the area I was working. So usually, without a track record, donors are very wary. They are very wary. But if you follow the principles, these days donors are also interested in funding, first of all, young people. They actually have special research grant for young people. who are at the beginning of their career or mid-level career. They are also interested in funding women. So if you find such calls for proposals, try and apply for those ones. Those are low-hanging ones. And they usually will pair you up with mentors. But nevertheless, you also begin to work with mentors. So work in teams. Begin by working with teams that are applying for research grants and participating in those research grants. So that when you are now asking for a research grant, you can also share that as an experience that you've had. But I think it's not difficult because I got my first grant too as a single principal investigator, just because, you know, again, if you are writing a good proposal and it follows all the principles, the idea is good, and you're able to follow the principles that the funding agency says sponsored. They will put a lot of obstacles in your way. They want to be sure that you can do the work, you know, and then you can get it as well.
Thank you so much, Prof. We don't have anyone who has indicated a raise of hand, but Prof talked about the 5 tips and he talked about develop an innovative and fundable idea. Prof, how do we develop an innovative idea? How are we?
You know, when like for example, I'm a professor of medicine, when I'm doing my work round with my patients, that's where I get the ideas from. I ask the woman, why did you come to the hospital? You say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, why? Then I will now begin to think about idea. Oh, if that's the case, then we can do this work. So. And then the next minute, I will start putting this down, convert an idea to innovation. Innovation is simply putting an idea to practice. You know, and I think that we should be confident enough. If we read enough of the literature, we'll be able to know what has been done. You read a lot, you'll be able to know what I've done. So that when you have an idea, you know what is different about that idea, different from what you read. Do you understand? So, and I believe that a lot of us have ideas, but the difference is that some people have ideas, they allow the idea to sit without transforming them into action. So, and one of the ways to transform that, if you are in doubt, ask your colleague, ask a senior colleague, go to a conference, listen to others. You'll be amazed at what you get from it.
Thank you very much. We also have some questions. Gladys Mabunga is asking, great insight here. Thanks, Prof. Kindly guide on essentials of writing collaborative proposal for grants.
Well, I've had a lot of experiences in writing collaborative proposals. So, for example, if usually it's when you are responding to a call for either a concept paper or collaborative papers, they will tell you, some of them will spell it out that these are the type of collaboration we want. For example, I recently wrote one on gender, and I'm on gender and reproductive health, and there I would obviously need me they would like to see me as a specialist in reproductive health, but then they want to also see gender specialists coming from different institutions. And they also want to see multiple type of disciplines like health. You know, we are talking about gender, women must be well represented, there must be sociology and so on and so forth. For example, look at the activities we are going to carry out. We are going to do, let's say for me, we are going to do qualitative research. And you are not a qualitative researcher, you get somebody to do that. You are going to do data analysis, either quantitative data analysis or qualitative analysis. You look for somebody to do that, isn't it? If you need a health economist in the team, that will help you to do the costing and all that we put. So the important thing is to look at the objectives of your work and identify the stakeholders, the teams, the multiple teams that can help ensure that every aspect of that proposal is conducted very well with expertise. So, for example, they will say, oh, we want to do this and that. They would like to know the gender specialist. They would like to see his or her CV. They want to see his or her track record in doing these things. They want to see the publications you've had in that area to show that she knows what she's doing. Those are the things. And this day we have Google. They can Google anybody they can even Google you. They Google the team members and so on and so forth. And if you say you have done previous work or you have published a paper, they will go and Google that work. They look for citation of the work you've done. They go to all sorts of things. They do a lot. In the Ford Foundation, if, for example, you mention and say Covenant University, and you want to fund Covenant University, the program officers will go and do a lot of background check on Covenant University. They'll go to ask people before they give you the money. Do you understand? And then they will do similar checks around those who are partnering with you. And if one of them has a bad record or has a poor record, maybe not implementing their grant very well, or do something silly, then that will affect you, even though you are not the person who caused that problem. So you must select your team very well. And the team is selected in a way to say they must have a reason for being in the team. They must have a problem they are going to help to solve in that team. They can't just be there just because they are there, but they must be there to be able to solve a problem. If you put somebody or people and without defining their roles in that project, it's not likely to be funded.
Thank you so much, Prof. There are other questions. We have Dr. Samuel Mungai asking, thanks, Prof, for the presentation. There's this concept of theory of change common in grant and concept paper. Kindly elaborate.
No, theory of change is simply, for example, if what you are proposing is a change, social change, moving from one aspect of the social continuum to the other side. So if you say, for example, you want to reduce maternal mortality, you want to reduce the number of women who die during childbirth, the theory of change is saying, how are you going to do that? Who are you going to get involved in the process of achieving that change that you're asking for? The theory of change is the science behind the social change that you're envisaging. You know, which some people ask, you can actually do something like a logic framework where you look at the objectives, the activities, the immediate outcomes, the impact, and so on and so forth, and draw them as a theory of change. We want to say, okay, this is what activities we carry out. These are the way we are going to carry out. These are the short-term effects of those activities. These are the longer-term effects, impact of those activities. So saying that if you do this work in this methodology, it will lead to immediate changes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then long-term, it will lead to this, and so on and so forth. So theory of change, some funders request it. And actually, when you write a proposal, you will find that even if they don't request it, you will inevitably have to put it there. It will just come out based on the way you write it. The theory of change on how you are going to achieve. Because that's what we want to know. How you are going to achieve what you say you achieve will come out in its own self. Either in writing the monitoring and evaluation component of it, or in describing what you want to do in terms of why are you doing this project, why do you think that the methodology you have put in place will work. All of those will come out. It will definitely come out. Those are the things they will look out. Sometimes the donors will ask you to write it. Sometimes, even without them asking you, you have to know that you have to explain that component, explain how you are going to achieve the change that you have set for yourself in this type of research proposal.
Thank you so much, Prof. We have another question here. It says, is a cover letter as important as proposals, sir? If yes, what are the critical components of a cover letter?
Thank you. Well, the cover letter cannot save a proposal that is not well written, please. You know, no matter how beautiful you write the cover letter, you know, actually, the cover letter I've written that I've gotten in grants, I'll just say, dear so kindly find attached with the proposal listed below. I'm submitting it in response to your call for proposal. Thank you very much. I look forward to your favorite. That's all. And that itself does the work. I don't think that I've not heard of a proposal, a concept of a cover letter ever doing the magic. They will still go through the proposal. As a matter of fact, the cover letter will be something they will tear out of the proposal and put aside while reading the full proposal. Do you understand?
Thank you.
It doesn't have to be too long. I've not written more than 3 lines in cover letters since I've been submitting proposals. And nobody has come back to tell me that I didn't write a very good cover letter. That's why they didn't accept my proposal.
Thank you so much, Prof. We have another question from Dr. Kayode Ogunshola. He's saying, please, what do you consider to choose the PI from a research group to enhance grant award?
Well, the PI should have the highest knowledge, should be the tallest in the group, should have the most comprehensive knowledge, the most economic experience. No, because, you know, in some when I review for some grant organizations, they actually score the knowledge and experience of the principal investigator. They go and do a lot of work because he's the one that will be driving the research. So the principal investigator they sometimes in the last proposal that I wrote, they scored 10 out of the 100 marks given. 10 was for principal investigator. So it is very, very important that the person you are choosing must be the one knowledgeable in that area of work, must have experience, must also have experience in doing, not just only experience in doing similar work. And if possible, if it's known internationally, there are some people who are just well known. And when they submit proposal, they'll say, is it this, is it Mr. Akinlo? We know him, and so on and so forth. There's also some elements of, I don't know what to call it, some elements of bias by some funders. They see some names that they know, they will run after those names. And they see a name they don't heard of before. It takes a long time before they can begin to accept those names. So principal investigator in a grant is very, very important.
Thank you so much, sir. We have a question from the Vice Chancellor of Covenant University, Professor Abiodun Adebayo. Thanks so much for a great presentation. Are you willing to mentor some participants in this webinar in grant writing by helping to review their proposals?
You know, your Vice Chancellor is my friend.
Yeah.
I admire him a lot. He's done wonderful work. Anything he asks me to do, I'll do it.
Thank you so
if
much,
he even
sir.
says that I should start coming to Covenant University this evening, I'll come. So, sir, I'm ready.
Thank you.
My friend.
Thank you so much, sir. We have a question from John Abiodun Daramola. He said, can one get a list of some donor agencies and their focus areas?
Actually, I have a big book, which I got almost like 10, 20 years ago, of all the funding agencies around the world in various areas, no matter where you are. Part of what academics should be doing when they enter academia is to, apart from doing publishing papers, they should try and find out the organizations that fund in the area, whether it's engineering, whether it's, in fact, this can also be obtained from Google now. If you want, you can compile a list and addresses of people that fund in health, that fund in education. There's almost no area of human endeavor where you don't have funding agencies. There's none. So if you're entering academia, part of what you should be doing is the ability to raise funds for your institution, for your work. So at that point in time, you should look for the funding agencies. And, you know, if people don't attend conferences, but conferences are very powerful tools of meeting donors. Any important conference, you see them coming. And when you go to, yesterday I went to South Africa, I went to a conference in Mauritius, and I got 2 donors around talking to me about their work and all that, you know, and I put them in my diary of people that I can ask. And one actually asked me to submit a proposal to her in South Africa, and so on and so forth. So please, it is you. Searching for donors is an active work of academia. Go ahead and do it. Is that okay? It's not easy for me as a medical person to look no donors in engineering, to no donors in computer science, but to more and more, there are a lot of donors in those areas, but you can search for them and get them.
Thank you so much, Prof. We have a question from Cardio Barton. He's saying, thanks, Prof. Well done. Please tell us how suspicious is the word miscellaneous in budgeting?
Very, very suspicious. Nobody will allow that. I can tell you that. Please don't ever send that to any funding agency. They would like to know. All the agencies I work with, they don't like the word miscellaneous in the budget. Miscellaneous, even the only thing they ask for is overheads. Again, they will cap you. They say don't go beyond 10%. If they say 10%, don't put exactly 10%. If I were you, I put 9.5% or 8%. Is that okay? Miscellaneous, even at my local level, yeah, the University of Benin does not allow the word miscellaneous when you are submitting a project for work. They will cancel it immediately. So very, very suspicious.
Thank you, sir. We have for the Kaloko. Prof, aside from this seminar, are there any other opportunities to continue building the capacities of individuals wanting to grow in writing research proposal? E.g., is there a community of practice that can provide ongoing shared learning opportunities?
Well, my experience is that nobody taught me how to write proposals, so I want to tell you now. Nobody taught me. I can actually say I was taught by the first proposal I wrote, which I submitted to TDR in WHO, and which they subjected to tough scrutiny. And at the end, they didn't fund. Then I submitted another one to IDROC in Canada. And they took me through so many rounds of, I found out that even though I was a medical doctor, they wanted the perspectives of a demographer, social scientist. So I went to those people, I would sign and wrote proposal. And eventually I got that one. So it's like you driving a car. Unless you actually take the steering. When I started driving, nobody taught me how to drive. I simply started going, and I hit the wall, the car broke, going back again, and learned how to drive subsequently. The same way, if you write a proposal, make mistakes. Correct yourself on those mistakes. If you don't write the first proposal, you will never know how to, even if you attend 20 workshops. That's my experience. I know people who have been attending workshops over the last 10 years, they've not written one. There's no way they can know how to write a proposal. Practice makes perfect, isn't it? Yeah. So please, go ahead. If you want, I can send you some samples. Anybody that is interested, I can send you some samples of proposals I've written. And you can follow, but these proposals are not the same. The subject matter is different. If you are in head, it may be different. What's the plan focus? What problem do you want to solve? And with discipline. How are you going to do it? What problem do you want to solve? So if for example, you want to work with me, the first question, what the idea do you have? And I will match the idea, I'll ask questions. And I'll tell you, for example, I have my students who came to me today, PhD students, who I was talking to about our research topics. And by the time they finished presenting, I was able to help them turn around the proposals, to turn around the concepts, to meet what I think are researchable topics, But the end of the day, it's your project. Please write proposals. Even if you make mistakes, don't be afraid to get rejected. Part of what I've been fighting in University of Benin is that I assist people in writing proposals. Sometimes they get, sometimes they don't get. When they don't get, they get so depressed. So I spend a lot of time trying to convince them not to be depressed. In fact, not to be depressed. So I spend a whole lot of time appealing to them because I'm worried that they may be depressed and not write again. But the truth is that you must write. You must keep writing until you can write no more. If you want a grant, you will have to write because without writing, you can get. Make mistake. Find out why you made the mistake. Find out how to address it. Subsequently, you get and write better. That's my advice on that.
Thank you so much, Prof. Adel Asante is asking, thanks, Prof, for an insightful presentation. Please, can we have the slides in our mail? We also have Emmanuel Azure asking, how many organizations or institutions can form a consortium?
Oh, good. It depends on the number of issues. For example, we are currently working on a consortium on climate change around the world. And there's a group from Ghana, Nigeria, Indonesia, India, UK. We are actually about 18 of us in that consortium to be funded by the Medical Research Council. So it depends on the problem and the capacity they bring in. And in doing so, you have to draw an organogram to assign a role to each of them in terms of the work description. So it doesn't appear as if we just brought them in, to be a consultant without responsibility being assigned to them. So out of those group of people, we have responsibility. It's being led by me and the Imperial College in London, in that type of consortium. Do you understand me? So the number is indeterminable. It's the more relative, I would say the more the better, but for each single person that comes to the consortium, you must be able to describe a role. You must be doing something. You should not be seen like an assistant coach or something, sitting down and doing nothing. Have you ever seen 11 people play football and no one is playing inside the football? They must be playing soccer. If somebody is a member of the consortium and is just a watcher, an observer, then it's not fit to be in the consortium. And the collaborative agency will spot that immediately. They will spot it. And that could be a problem for you to get the funds.
Thank you so much, Prof. We have one question. How can we build a strong research team and establish collaboration to increase our chances of securing grant? I think it's similar to the previous.
No, it's similar but not similar. You see, building research collaboration team is trust. Let me tell you, if you want a team to come together, for them to be devoted to that team, you'll be surprised that a lot of some people will do funny things in that network. There will be lack of trust. Do you understand? And those can easily be identified. Look, when I was in Ford Foundation, you have a team working on the group. About 5 of them working. And then when they start working, one of them will write a letter of protest to us and tell us that this one did this one did that. And when I was there, we had to cancel 2 teams because they couldn't work together. There was no trust. We must establish a mechanism to ensure that everybody trusts each other and that you are working in terms of being able to say that, well, you are working together on a common mission and that you trust each other and that these are the work we are doing. The mechanism for working an agreement, even on publications. People fight on publications alone. Now we talk of even the money that is being distributed and so forth. So the ability for a team to be a team is the ability to be trustworthy, to rely on one another, to ensure that if you have a work plan, for example, I just wrote a proposal with some teams, and before then, when I wrote the proposal, well, at the point we're not doing the budget, I told them to do the budget. I said, please, I know you are do the budget, let me know do the budget. They did the budget, and I said, the only thing is that look at the activities to be done by everybody. Make sure the budget is fitted that way, what you get and so on and so forth. And they did it, and there was no single dissension about the budget. One of the things that divides teams is budget and the application of budget. And one of the things we also said is we want to be able to look, when you are bringing the budget, there are four working on this. Please send this amount of money to this man. Don't let it pass to anybody. It goes to my own, comes to me, and we've agreed on the budget, and then the work to be done will be done. So that is element of trust is so important in team building and in partnership, because that's what keeps a lot of problems in our setting.
Thank you very much, Prof. We have one question. How do we overcome the administrative bottleneck encountered in most university systems in Africa, which make it difficult to drive in funds, e.g. obtaining grant-required documents from university management? Well,
you should learn from Covenant University. They are doing it perfectly well, I can tell you that. There are vice chancellors that know the rules of grant record, and that's why it's there here at this particular workshop. You know, unfortunately, not everybody is the same. Not everybody is the same. The role of a university and a university vice chancellor is to raise funds and to encourage people to raise funds. Can you imagine you have 10 professors in Covenant University, all of them raising funds for the university? And at the end of the day, the university gets its own portion, and the university allows other money to be spent the way it should be spent. That comes a whole lot of money. Harvard University, where I had the opportunity to have studied, they get a lot of their funding from research grants. As a matter of fact, billions of dollars today. And it is because of the positive approach of society presidents of Harvard University. So please, I don't want to hear that the universities are preventing, their researchers from using their funds, because my University of Benin is excellent. We have a vice chancellor who is doing excellently well, So I think that between University of Benin and University of Covenant, maybe we should do a workshop for vice chancellors on these issues. Maybe Professor VC, sir, please think of doing a workshop, international grant university role of vice chancellors. That would be a very good workshop, and I think that it will help to galvanize the process, the 2 things that are currently happening.
Thank you very much, sir. Within the very short time that we have left, we have one pressing question. If a proposal assessor contacts you during evaluation stage for a payment or other benefit to recommend your proposal, what should you do?
I will not, in fact, that's an unethical, very unethical problem. Very, very unethical. Very, very unethical. I find in any case, many of what I know, the funding agencies don't give out the names of their reviewers. Nobody knows. If they know, but they are not supposed to know, because even the reviewer runs the risk of being attacked if it goes out with negative comment. It is very unethical for somebody to say, "Oh, I will give you this and that." It probably I've not had it done. I've not had it anywhere since, but it's a possibility. But if it does occur, it is surely a big no-no. It's unethical and it shouldn't be encouraged. That's why we need a workshop for vice chancellors and other people, other components of research. I talk about the ethics of research funding, ensuring that because the money is meant for development, for social development, and it should not be used otherwise.
Thank you very much, Prof. Somebody made a suggestion that the workshop should not only be for vice chancellors, but also bosses.
No, but Professor, my VC here knows that it is the vice chancellor that determines what happens. There's no bossa that can talk outside where the VC is. When I was vice chancellor, the bossa stays where he is. He stays where he is. He cannot come and give me anything I don't approve. He doesn't do it. Do you understand me?
Yes,
Bursars,
yes.
the vice chancellors cannot give their left hand to the bursar. Whatever happens in terms of financial management rests at the shoulders of the vice chancellor, not the bursar. So if I will not call bursars to this, because their philosophy, the vice chancellor is a composite individual who have learned, who has knowledge, he has skills, he knows about research, he knows the importance of research management. The bursars are always interested in money. My experience with bursars is that they're interested in money. I don't want to talk more on that. If you want us to have another discussion, do not bring bursars to that discussion. Let the vice chancellor do it, because they are the ones to know that money is money. It's only when it is used for development that it makes sense. So if they give you money, you'll be surprised that if you call bursar, they will say the university must get out of it. Oh, if the university is broke and they need money to pay salary, they should take out of it. Bursars will say that, but vice chancellors will not say that. So let us confine it to vice chancellor and vice chancellor.
Thank you very much, Prof. Finally, someone is asking if you were asked to do a 5-minute presentation on winning proposal, what will you include in that presentation? Sorry, we don't have 5 minutes. It's already time for us to
even 2
move.
minutes. I can do that in 2 minutes. I just talk about the objectives and how I want to do it, and then the amount of money required. That's all. And that will be less than 2 minutes. You know this guy that Einstein, who discovered the law of relativity. He described it into a formula. I think something m squared or so. That's all. That was the sentence he made. The law of relativity that MC described. Is Einstein? Yes. Yeah, 2 words. And if you ask him, he will describe it in 1 sentence. So anybody that doing things that lead to social change should be able to describe what you want to do in a few sentences, and not necessarily a whole gamut of things.
Thank you very much, Prof. We sincerely appreciate you for your time. We will be moving now to the comms department to take group photographs. So Mercy, Rita, over to you.
All right, thank you. Thank you everyone for joining this call. So we're going to take a group photo. I will entreat that we all show our videos. Just show your video so we can see one another's face, and then we can take the picture. 3, 2, 1. Thank you all very much. We will continue with the proceedings.
Thank you all very much for taking the time to join this session. We can all agree that it has been very, very insightful, and we want to thank Prof. Okonofua for such an insightful presentation. At this point, we would like to evaluate the session, and we want to know how the session went, your key takeaways, and how we could improve the next session. So if you check the chat box, you'll see the evaluation link. Kindly take a few minutes, less than 2 minutes, to please fill the evaluation form so that we can improve the next session for you. Okay, whilst you are doing so, the grant writing series, it's going to be 4 sessions. So we have Prof. Okonofua give us the first session today, and the second session will be held on June 18th, and it's going to be on mastering the act of persuasive writing effective grant proposals. And the goal of this session is to spotlight the essential components of a grant writing proposal, where the speaker will emphasize persuasive writing techniques, the structuring of the proposal, and effectively communicating the significance and impact of the proposed research. So it will be a build-up on what Prof has shared with us today, and we'll be sharing with you information about this session, the link to register for the session as well. And be rest assured that you'll be receiving the recording from this session and the slides as well. So you need to please mark your calendar for June 18th for the next session. Right after the June 18th session, we'll be having 2 more sessions as well to end the series. Another important thing will be for you to please follow our social media handles. We are on Instagram, we are on LinkedIn, we are on Twitter or X, we are on Facebook as well. Just search for the Education Collaborative and you find us. You can share about your learnings from today's session, and we are happy to retweet, reshare, and also comment on your post as well. Thank you very much once again for taking the time to join the meeting. If you haven't filled the evaluation form yet, kindly do so. Thank you.
Yeah, Rita, can I just make my comment before you shut down? Because a lot of wish has been sent to me.
Yes,
yeah,
Prof.
Thank you so much, Education Collaborative, for partnering with us and with Covenant University in organizing this series. And we are excited to be part of the Education Collaborative in promoting, education among the region. And we are excited that this series of grant writing that will lead ultimately to other things in terms of the real practical works. But let me mention here that this series will continue. Webinar series will continue, and in the coming sessions also, which will mark the grand finale, will see to the fact that we have persons who will be invited to Covenant University here for the actual show, and where you will be trained on how to really write grant, and you will even compete for winnable grants, and I'm sure you will be part of those that will be selected to be here. But again, let me appreciate my very good friend, Professor Friday Okonofoa, for accepting to deliver this very insightful topic and initiating this series of grantmanship or grant writing. I appreciate you, sir, for within the short test notice you have been given, you were able to indeed come up with this thing. It means it is in your blood, it's part of you, and that's why we have invited you to come and share your experience with us. I know if we leave you from now till tomorrow, you will keep everything about you is about grantmanship. So thank you so much for that. We are grateful at the landmark achievement you have made within the educational space. I want again to reiterate that as a university, we will continue to support all initiatives that drive towards grants, that drives towards education, that drives towards quality research. And that is what our pride is as a university. There are so many insightful issues that have been discussed here. First is the workshop series for the vice chancellors. We will see how this can also come up. It's also a take home for us here at the university to begin to also think about. So we'll look at how that works, and we see how vice chancellors can really have some sessions, so we can also tell ourselves what to expect and how to administer grant. And administrative bottlenecks that has equally been mentioned here today. For us in the university, we support our staff, we support our faculty, and we drive them. For instance, if any faculty writes to me that he needs a proposal, he needs the support of he will get the letter within maybe 48 hours and 72 hours, provided all the documents are ready. So that tells you how we drive research, how we drive our faculty here to begin to get winnable grants. And again, on the vice chancellor sits at the helm of affairs, so the bossa has no deal. He takes instructions from the vice chancellor in the administration of grants, and that's exactly what we do here. There are no bottlenecks here in administering our grant, and we will do it to the specification of the guarantor. That is, there are documents that have been filled. This is what an individual persons are supposed to be used. They want for research, they want for consumables, they want for field work, whatever. And the researchers, honorarium, everything will be done to the letter. And that also helps to preserve the integrity of the institution. And that's what we have been driving here. There are no administrative bottlenecks with us here. And I think the Vice Chancellor Summit on grant writing is imminent, and we can begin to see how we can look at that within the sub-region so that it covers other areas. Once again, I'd like to appreciate you, sir, for coming on board, to appreciate Education Collaborative on this platform, and of course, Ashesi University, and all my other colleagues who are here. Thank you so much for joining, and we hope to see you in another series. And it's a good friend again that is coming, Professor Mattis Emeje. Please don't miss that for anything. I'm sure you are going to have the best of the very best of time. Thank you so much again from Covenant University. Thank you for participating in this webinar series. Hope to see you June 18, 2024. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you very much, Prof. Adebayo. We are very grateful for joining. And lastly, the Education Collaborative has a research community of practice where we engage on issues around research as well. Once we are sending the follow-up emails and thank you emails, if you haven't already registered to be a part of the research community of practice, you would have the chance to join the community of practice as well. Thank you and goodbye.